about the last 6 months of Steve being unemployed, and how I'd worked 60-hour weeks while he played video games and barely looked for jobs. I talked about how resentful I'd gotten doing everything while he did nothing, how I'd stopped telling him about my day because he never seemed interested, how we'd stopped having real conversations about anything important. Lisa listened and asked if I'd ever told Steve I was at my breaking point before all this happened. I realized I hadn't, because I'd been too busy being angry and working all the time to actually sit down and have an honest conversation with him. She pointed out that Steve excluding me was terrible, but I'd also checked out of the marriage months before without telling him how serious things had gotten. We'd both failed each other in different ways, and now we had to decide if we wanted to fix it or let it end. I fell asleep on the couch around 4 in the morning, and woke up at 9 to 17 missed calls from Hawaii. 3 were from Steve, 2 from Theodore, 1 from Lillian, and the rest were from numbers I didn't recognize that I assumed were other family members calling to yell at me. I ignored all of them and made coffee while Lisa took a shower. My phone rang again at 10, and this time it was Lillian calling. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Lillian's voice sounded completely different from the cold, formal tone she'd used when she called me about giving Steve bonding time. She sounded exhausted and sad and older somehow. She said she needed to talk to me about what was really happening with the Hawaii trip. I braced myself for another lecture, but instead she said she'd been watching Steve completely fall apart over the past 2 days. She'd seen him crying in the bathroom, snapping at the kids, unable to sleep or eat or enjoy anything about the vacation. Yesterday he'd finally broken down and told her and Theodore the truth about why I wasn't there. He'd admitted he deliberately excluded me and lied to everyone about me choosing to stay home because I was negative and tired. He'd confessed to telling the kids I didn't want to come because I didn't love them enough. He'd explained about losing his job and feeling worthless and trying to prove he could still provide something by planning this trip without me. Lillian said she felt terrible for believing Steve's story about me being negative and needing space. She'd called me to say how sweet it was that I was giving Steve bonding time, when really I'd been completely excluded and lied about to my own children. She apologized for not questioning Steve's version of events, and said she should have known something was wrong when he seemed so relieved I wasn't making a scene at the airport. She asked if there was any way to fix this mess, or if Steve had destroyed our marriage completely. I told her I didn't know yet, and I needed time to figure out what I wanted. She said she understood, and she hoped we could work things out, because she could see how much Steve loved me, even though he'd made terrible choices. We hung up, and I felt even more confused than before. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a video call request from Steve's phone. I answered it and saw Mia's face filling the screen instead of Steve's. She was sitting on a beach towel with her hair wet and sandy, and she looked so small and sad that my chest hurt. Caden appeared next to her, and they both looked at me with these guilty, worried faces. Mia asked if I was mad at them for going to Hawaii without me. I told her I could never be mad at her or Caden for anything Daddy planned. She started crying and said Daddy told them I didn't want to come because I didn't love them enough to take a vacation with them. She said she'd believed him because Daddy seemed so sure, and now she felt bad for not asking me if it was true. Caden said